I see a generation lost in the wilderness, a breed of boys without male models, abandoned in the basement of life, knowing no way up. They dig themselves into pits of depravity. I see a brand of boys with absent fathers who have more toys than they want, while lacking all the love and guidance they desperately need. Knowing not the way of manhood, they stagger like drunks through adolescence, forever stumbling toward adulthood, and still so far from maturity. A 40-day journey turned 40 years, and still they are babies. Their bodies claim they have qualified, but their reasoning was stunted in the cradle. And many years later, we are still wondering, where are our young men? But we lost them. We lost the boys that should have been men today because the fathers left them without a guide to lead them to the harbor of honorable manhood. The boys were lost because the fathers were too busy to bother, too selfish to sacrifice the needful, too demanding to relate, too domineering to care, and too opinionated to listen. The fathers were everything but what they should have been, and thus our boys became everything but what they ought to be. The fathers were lost to the boys who needed them most when they needed them the most. I see a brood of boys left to themselves, the one-eyed leading the rest into the pit. They are falling, piling, crying, screaming into the silence that walls them in. But the world is too busy to hear or pay attention to the gut-wrenching wailings of broken boys and drowning sons. Their tears was once a drop that trickled, but it gathered as it continued unchecked. Now it flows. Their streaming tears have become rivers that corrode and erode the fabrics of a fragile society. But we are too busy to be bothered. Get it right, boys, we bark at them. Get your acts together, sons. But how do you know what you were not taught? Today, hearts are breaking. Hearts of babies and daughters, mothers, sisters and aunties, even hearts of fathers, brothers and uncles. There is yet a heart. Spare the anguish of what our boys are becoming, of what our sons are performing. Our pathetic tears mingle with their toxic sweat because our sons are killing crimes and breaking jails. Everyone is pointing fingers at the boys we lost, forgetting that they are products of lost men and missing fathers. We lost the men first, then we lost the boys. And for recovery, we must find the men first to find the boys. Absent fathers must set the example and come home for sons to return. Until missing men return and resume their duties as role models, the lost boys will continue to drown. Lost sons will not be found. Every day washes their bodies ashore. Bodies of boys left to lead themselves to no good. Souls of sons marred by their keepers, ruined by their helpers. And we marvel, what a generation so flooded and yet so blind. What's wrong with these boys? Why are true sons so rare to find? What a dark fate for a generation so aware and so awash. The river of their streaming tears has swollen into a flood that is raging by and sweeping through and drowning us and our livelihood. Society calls it crime, but it is the streaming tears of boys turned catastrophic flood that is sweeping away the good, the bad, and the absent, because those tears hold no grace, for they were shown no mercy. Their tears are a wreck. Where are the real men? Where are the fathers of today? Oh, over there. They are scrambling to save the day, to repress the flood and stem the destruction. But who will tell them that you don't become a hero by saving a day you messed up? You don't stop the fire by targeting the flames. Can we go back to the roots, please? You don't stem the rage of a surging flood by standing in its way. It will sweep you away. until the cries of the boys are heard, until the tears of sons are stopped, until men arise and become models they can emulate, until fathers return to love, guide, provide, and protect, until real men show these boys what it takes to be a man. So I raise my voice today, calling on those who are men, real men. Show your faces to the lost boys of this generation. I raise my voice today, calling on absent fathers, men with the heart of fathers. Our lost sons cannot be found without you. Stand up wherever you are. All of you that are men, it is time to model true and honorable manhood for boys to learn. Come home, deserted fathers. Kick your vain pursuits. It's time to win back the souls of lost sons, because the only way we can preserve the next generation is to rescue this present generation. And the only way to save the lost is for men to arise and for fathers to return, for them to penetrate this wilderness that hides our boys, to demystify this darkness that steals our sons, to dive into this ditch that was dug by their absence and carelessness, to begin to listen and hear the silent cries of broken boys, to discern the hidden pains of a generation at loss, to dry the tears flowing down the souls of scarred sons. Let the men arise and lead the way for the boys to follow. Let fathers arise and rescue the future of our youth. If only men will be men and take their place and lead, the lost boys will learn to follow. If only fathers will be fathers in truth and in deed, prodigal sons will return and lead the next generation up. The only hope for the next generation is in the steps that the men and the fathers of today leave behind for this present generation of boys and sons. Men and fathers, will you arise today to save the lost generation? This is yet another part of this burning message, from the loving heart of a caring father to the wounded hearts of sons who no longer know what it means to be sons and men. This generation needs you. Our children need to be fathered. Our sons need to learn the ways of manhood from men who know. Watch out for the other parts in coming days. Please subscribe and hit the bell button so you are notified as I post updates on this series of Mission to Rescue and Restore Manhood. Feel free to share this with family and friends. And don't forget that you are a star and it's your time to shine.